to take him serious in the hard knock stuff and as a coach because of that. But the other thing is, remember, football has changed a ton since he coached last. And, I think you've seen other coaches that came back after a while struggle a little bit because the game is constantly evolving. And I don't know necessarily that football's passed him by, but you get a collection of guys out there that are younger, and you get a collection of guys that are, some divish guys. And let's be honest, the Oakland football team isn't great. And so at the end of the day, does Mike Mayock survive this as well, this big misstep with Antonio Brown? There's another guy that came from television who we saw on the NFL Network and, all the drafts. Does he survive this debacle of Antonio Brown? It'll be interesting to see what Mark Davis does with this Raiders football team.
Well, I can tell you one thing. You can't go into your boss. You can't pick a fight. You can't post things on Instagram. You can't make a racist comment like cracker toward him and expect to survive that. He's not going to be with the Raiders. We know that. We got to move forward, and we're going to keep with you, Mo, and then we'll go just kind of get through all of these games. Mo, I know you do duty in what you do in the real world and covering the Bears and the Browns. The Bears were in action on Thursday night. Kind of a snooze fest, kind of a crap fest, if you ask me. I was talking to Ed about it earlier. He goes, well, that's football. People are going to watch it. It was a defensive game. But you only saw one touchdown. Maybe that's good. Maybe that's bad. Maybe that's what happens. They say defenses win Super Bowls. If that's the case, Packers are well on their way to Super Bowl 2019.
Well, they wanted to kick off the season with those two teams, the honor of the 100 years of football, and this game was like a game 100 years ago because, man, it was slow. But, both of those defenses played really well. Chicago's defense, regardless of losing, looked, pretty darn good. The Packers' defense, I think people were shocked how good that they looked. And after a day already, I'm so tired of the Mitch Trubisky talk. If you remember correctly, he started slow last year as well and came on pretty good. He's going to have to make decisions a lot quicker. But, again, you're talking about, an offense for two teams that didn't play hardly at all, if any, in the preseason. So a lot of these guys, it's their first actual real game action since last season. So, I'm not too concerned about Trubisky moving forward. It was nice to see their field goal kicker make a kick. It's funny, they had that 4th and 10 on, what would have been like a 51 or 52-yard field goal, and the Bears, there was no shot in hell they were bringing him out to kick the football, put him in that situation. So it'll be interesting to see how these teams do moving forward. A big win for Green Bay. Obviously, in the NFL, all the games matter, and they get a win against a division rival, the defending champs for that division, on the road at Soldier Field. So big win for the Packers, and the Bears have to regroup and come back next week and try to get that offense going.
All right, guys, let's do the homer card before we get to some of these other games. Homer card, we'll start with you, Rick. The Lions are at the Cardinals. I tell you what, the Cardinals are a new, rejuvenated team this year, and the Lions still have, in my opinion, have not shown themselves to be much of anything. But we'll see what happens. The Cardinals have a new stud quarterback. What are your thoughts out there in the desert? Your Lions go out there. Do they get fed, or do they walk away hungry?
Well, there's always some type of corner out there the Lions just can't turn. So I expect that this year too. But this game against the Cardinals anyway, I think the Cardinals has the worst offensive line probably in NFL football history. And I think just based off that, Kyler Murray is probably not going to have a good first game. I do think the Lions defense is good enough to get a win against Arizona because that offensive line is so atrocious. And that the game the other night, the Thursday night game, the Packers-Bears, was so awful, it gave Lions fans like me actually hope for the season because the Bears and Packers didn't look that good. So maybe there's hope for the Lions to get a win later in the season against one of these two teams.
Well, we'll see what happens. Moving on with the home card tomorrow, the Eagles welcome with open arms the Redskins, who have a former Eagle, Smallwood, there, and I honestly think this is going to, and I mentioned, I texted you this earlier this week. Dan Patrick and other national media have picked the Eagles and the Chiefs to go to the Super Bowl, the Chiefs to win. We'll see what happens. But I tell you what, you guys are going to be able to get off to a good start against the Redskins. What's going on there with the Eagles this week as you guys prep for Week 1 against the Washington Redskins?
Well, I think the Eagles are the biggest favorite, out of Vegas of any game this week. I think they're a 9.5-point favorite. And, the Eagles, it's pretty simple. You have to shut down the running game. They have a pretty good, or what looks to be a good 1-2 punch with Adrian Peterson and Darius Geis, who missed all of his rookie season with the torn ACL. going to kind of come out with some kind of vengeance to show what the NFL missed. So, you know, you got to stop that 1-2 punch. I don't know how big a role Smallwood will have in the game. You know, they also have Chris Thompson, a very good pass-catching running back out of the backfield. But, you know, their offensive line, that left side, you're starting Eric Flowers at left guard, who was a bust as a Giants pick, and you have Donald Penn, who's 36 years old, was probably heading for retirement until the Redskins called because they needed somebody to take Trent Williams' place. So, you know, that left side of the line is very, very weak, can be exploited. But, you know, you look at the Eagles side of the ball, Wentz didn't play in the preseason. They have 4 defensive starters that didn't get any practice time really in training camp who are going to play. Fletcher Cox, Nigel Bradham, Ronald Darby, and then I'm missing a 4th one there. But, you know, there's a defense there that is going to be playing really for the first time since last year. So we'll see how they can hold up. But I just don't think the Redskins have enough weapons to you know, to make much of a damage. I think it could be kind of a slow starting game. Maybe the Eagles lead, you know, by 13-7 or 17-7 at halftime, and then in the second half maybe they open it up a little bit. But, yeah, it's a good game to kind of build some confidence heading into what figures to be a bigger test quarterback-wise. You know, they're going to play Case Keenum this week. Last time through Philadelphia, he got stomped as the Vikings quarterback in the NFC Championship game. But then after that, it gets a lot tougher with, you know, Matt Ryan in Atlanta, and then Matt Stafford comes in with Detroit, and then Aaron Rodgers at the end of the month in Green Bay. So this will be hopefully a good game for the Eagles secondary to kind of build some confidence to head into that little bit of a gauntlet to end the month.
Well, I hope so, because in one of my fantasy leagues, I have Wentz and Mahomes as my quarterback combination. So we'll see what happens. Hey, Mo, this week something big happened here in Indiana and across the United States. We're seeing this happening. Sportsbook betting is now legal. We love this, but you know, maybe a lot of people aren't used to betting, and now they could just freely go in and bet. And I know that you do a lot with Vegas, and you have your radio stuff in Vegas and betting. Just kind of help us understand how sportsbook betting works. Now that it's legal, we could just go in there and throw our money down, and give us some good pointers, if you will.
Well, I mean, the first thing you want to do is know what you're doing. Like anything, you know, like when I go to a casino, I don't play any of the picture slot machines that I don't understand how I get paid. That's the first thing. Understand how you get paid and what you have to do to win. You know, with the live sports betting, you know, a lot of times you can bet the game live as it goes, so you can bet the first quarter, the second quarter, the first half, second half. The line will change on the game at halftime. So knowing what you're doing, it's the same as playing craps. If you don't know how to play craps, you probably shouldn't play because you don't know how you can win your money. So that would be the biggest thing. Before you go make your first bet, bet within the parameters you can afford to lose. Don't try to catch up as the day goes on. If you've lost early games, don't try to make it up at the end of the day, because that never seems to work. But know what you're doing and how you're doing it. So read up on it before you go. That's the best advice I can give.
All right, let's talk a little bit about our Indianapolis Colts. This is my homer card here, Jacoby Brissett, and we just saw the backup signed brain fart. But either which way, New England guy as well, and I don't know why my brain just went dead on me, because it's Saturday morning and I'm already out at the racetrack.
Did they just sign Hoyer?
Brian Hoyer. Thanks, Rick. See, Rick is always there to never leave a man behind. Thanks, Rick. I appreciate that. Brian Hoyer. I don't know.
Man in the field.
I don't know where my mind was going with that, but Mo and Ed, let's get your thoughts. Jacoby Brissett, Brian Hoyer. But I think Brian Hoyer is a good matchup. And I tell you what, I was listening to some local interviews here, local radio with Frank Reich. Frank Reich said it's day one, minute one, when we brought in Brian Hoyer. He's like, I knew this was the right decision for Jacoby Brissett. And a lot of people maybe didn't like it, but I think it is a good – and let's face it, he was the best backup quarterback that was available. Mo, the Colts go to the Chargers. I honestly think that we got 10 wins in us. I don't know if we can beat the Phillip Rivers on the road in the first game of the season. I'm not overly concerned about that, but I think the statement it would make, if there's a way they could figure out a way to win tomorrow in Los Angeles.
Well, I mean, you know, one thing that helps the Colts is Derwin James is not playing for the Chargers. But the concern I have going back and watching Jacoby Brissett's games from the year he started for Andrew Luck was his inaccuracy downfield. You know, receivers, T.Y. Hilton and a couple of the other guys had to really adjust for his deep ball. It was a very wobbly ball back then. It was very inaccurate. So that's the part of his game that concerns me. His short game, I don't think is a problem. He's obviously got moves to where he can take off running if he needs to. He's behind a good line. So, my worry for Jacoby Brissett is his accuracy down the field. No Melvin Gordon, obviously, in this game, and again, no Derwin James. I think the Colts can have a win in them out in San Diego. It's always hard, though, to open up and go to an opposite coast. So that could be something tough for the Colts, a later start. But, it's Jacoby Brissett's show now. He got paid. Hopefully he'll have the confidence to, really go out and prove himself. But, again, you gotta wonder when things change like that. This, right before the season starts, what problems that brings with it. But I think the Colts can eke this one out, probably 24-21.
I think it was a great contract swap, if you will. They tore up one contract and made another one for Jacoby Brissett. Real quickly, Ed, we got to move on because we're running out of time here because Diva Antonio Brown gobbled up all of our time. But real quickly, what are your thoughts about the Colts, Jacoby Brissett, and Brian Hoyer?
Well, you hope you don't see Brian Hoyer the whole season. You hope Brissett is able to stay healthy and get better, as the season unfolds. But I think it's a tough opener for the Colts. It'll be interesting to see how they come out emotionally, after dealing with the retirement of Andrew Luck. I think Frank Reich will have them, emotionally ready. But still, it'll still be interesting. A little bit of a punch in the stomach there a week before the season starts or 2 weeks before the season starts. So, that'll be interesting to see. And like Mo said, going across the coast there to play an opener in Los Angeles. The Chargers were one of my dark horse picks at the start of the preseason to make it to the Super Bowl. But after losing Derwin James and, this prolonged holdout of Melvin Gordon is going to make it a little bit tougher for him. But I still think, I think the Chargers are a touchdown favorite in this game. I just don't, I don't think the Colts will win this game. I think if the opener will go to the Chargers, but that doesn't mean the Colts can't rebound and have a good season and maybe get to 9 wins or 10 wins if Brissett, like Mo said, if he can develop and learn how to find that accuracy downfield, that would go a long way to help make that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. In lieu of everything that happened with Andrew Luck, I think just getting a win will make statements, will send a clear statement to fans. And I know here in Indianapolis, we love Frank Reich, and he's just an awesome coach. And I just think that if anybody can rally the troops, it's Frank Reich, and we'll see what happens. Week 1 is underway. We've got the Chiefs against the Jaguars, Ed. We've got the Falcons, the Vikings, the Titans, and the Browns. Just overall, give us a synopsis, if you will, of Week 1. And next week, guys, we'll break down these games a little bit more because I am done talking about Antonio Brown. Go ahead, Ed.
Well, you mentioned the Browns and the Titans. That's a tough opener for Cleveland. They're at home, but I like the Titans to win the AFC South. And I know you kind of hate to hear that, but I think the Titans are going to win that division this year. And so that'll be a good match for the Browns. We'll see if all this hype, if they live up to all this hype. And are able to come out with a win against a very good Titans team. And then the Jaguars, Nick Foles, I'm kind of excited to see what he can do against Andy Reid's team. Reid kind of resurrected Foles' career when Foles thought he was going to retire. Andy talked him out of it. But, that offensive line in Jacksonville is just a disaster. So you hope that Foles can kind of stay upright. He had an oblique injury. He was on the injury report earlier in the week with an oblique injury. That's kind of one of the question marks about Foles is his health history. He hasn't had a whole lot of luck making it through seasons, just like a lot of quarterbacks in this league. And now you put him behind a very leaky offensive line, and that's going to spell trouble. I think the Chiefs win that game. But those are two that you just mentioned that stick out to me.
Mo, any final words of wisdom on Week 1?
Well, Browns fans are bursting at the seams to see this offense and this team play. So they're going to get it tomorrow at home against the Titans, and hopefully for Browns fans, at least Week 1 it goes good because I'll tell you, Browns fans will lose their mind. This team loses Week 1 at home.
Guys, before we go, I gotta go back to Ed. And Ed, you promised, you gave your word, so we're gonna have to have you. We're gonna have to ask you to keep your word. What big announcement do you have for us?
Yeah, I haven't mentioned it on Twitter, but I'm going to be my Eagles work will appear on SI.com, Sports Illustrated. So I'm kind of moving over to SI.com.
Wow, very nice.
Congrats! All right, buddy.
So Yeah. So the domain that I'm writing under now is going to change to si.com/NFL/Eagles. That's where all my work will be from now on. So a lot more eyeballs, a lot more advertising revenue. So
yeah,
it's
yeah,
a pretty good
absolutely.
situation.
And thank you for sharing it with us before you